I'm Cecilia,
And my name is Lindsay Taviran.
and we are F-BOM. And today is our second interview with our current F-BOM author, Sharolyn G. Brown, author of The Heaviness of Knowing. If you saw Sharolyn's first sneak peek interview, then you already know a little bit about the book, or maybe you've already read the book because we are halfway through Sharolyn's period as our F-BOM author. So we're going to keep this interview spoiler free, but I'm sure that some of you have already started your books or maybe even finished.
And if you're reading it, you know you can log into the F-BOM forums and ask questions directly to Sharolyn. Don't be shy. It's a lot of fun to kind of go back and forth and have pretty deep conversations about the book or inspiration and all the things that go into making it.
Yep, exactly. And so we pulled some of those questions from the forums here today, and then we have a few new ones as well. So I think we're just going to dive right in, but I do want to say that you have to watch all the way to the very end because that's where we are going to release the topic for our next flash fiction contest.
And we have awesome prizes. Do you want to show them off?
Yes. First of all, we have book 2, The Peril of Knowing. So this is extra motivation for you to get through book 1 because book 2 is coming your way. And then we also have a dream journal. I'll try and show it without any glare. And I can put a picture of this up on the website too. But if you've already started the book or if you saw the sneak peek, then you know that The Heaviness of Knowing is all about dreams. So a dream journal is a perfect companion to that.
And they were handpicked by the author herself.
Okay, so we are going to start with the classic question, and one that I know we've covered a few times, especially touched on in the sneak peek as well, but basically, where do your ideas come from? So you can talk about The Heaviness of Knowing again, or any other stories that you're working on. Go ahead and take it away.
Okay. All right. So I just want to start by saying hi to everyone watching. And I guess for me, where my ideas come from, they're pretty much always real life. So it has to do with some conversation that I'm having with someone, and it kind of sparks an idea in my imagination. Or it could be something that I see that kind of sparks this what if question for me. So, as I believe I talked about in the intro video, for The Heaviness of Knowing, the idea for that came from a conversation I was having with one of my girlfriends about how she never remembers her dreams. And so that kind of led me down this path that ultimately ended up being this series of stories about aliens who are using our dreams to try to help them invade the earth. So that's where that one came from. I actually have another series that I'm potentially considering writing next. I don't really know yet. That one came as a result of a dream I had where I woke up and I had two husbands. And so it was the absolute weirdest dream ever. But I started thinking about it and it just fascinated me all day. And so it kind of gave me this idea about this woman who legitimately has a reason for having two husbands. So, and it, of course, has like this sci fi fantasy type tilt because that's my thing. So, yeah.
Sounds like there's lots of room for hilarity in that one, to wake up one day and suddenly have a second husband.
Yes, yes, it really was. Yes.
Sounds like a good Valentine's Day short story.
That's true.
Yes.
Okay, so I guess on the same note about writing, do you have a favorite character to write?
Favorite character. I think in this series, probably my favorite character to write, it kind of started out as Lauren the first time I wrote this story because initially I thought the story started being about like the first story was going to be about her. But the more I revised and kind of got feedback from my beta readers, the more I realized that this first book is actually Roxal's story. Like it's all about her and this journey for her to find her own voice and trying to figure out that being invisible isn't necessarily the best thing. So to me, writing her in book 1 and book 2 and now in book 3 that I'm sending to the editor next week. And seeing her development and her growth has really, really been fun for me. The other kind of favorite character I have that I've been writing is, not giving away any spoilers, but there's a therapist in The Heaviness of Knowing named Estella, and she actually has my mom's name and a little bit of her personality. So that's also kind of a favorite character for me to write as well.
Has your mom read the book?
Yes, she read the books, which was a complete and total surprise to me because my mom is one of those where it doesn't matter what you're doing. Like, if I were to tell her that I was going to be dancing on the street corner, like, she would be there to watch me dance on the street corner. And so I really expected her to buy a copy of the book, but I never expected her to really read it and get into it because my mom is not a fantasy and sci-fi fan at all. So the fact that she not only read the story, but she was really into it and she would talk to me about it, I was like, okay, I think you enjoyed that. So she really did. Yeah, she has read both of the novels and both novellas. So.
Awesome. It's always good to have a cheerleader.
Yeah, exactly.
And she approves of how her name was used.
Yes, and actually I use a lot of my family members' names in this. So again, the planet Trebor, my father's name is Robert, and so that's Robert backwards. That's where I got the planet name. And then the therapist, yes. And so the therapist, Stella, is from my mom, Estella. And then there's some characters later in the book, which are family members' names for a lot of the alien characters. And I just switched the letters around and, whatever. And part of it's because it's so funny. Like, when you're writing the story, I never realized I needed all of these names. And finally, I get to this point in the story and it's like, okay, I need the name of a character. And I hadn't thought about it. And so, like, I just start pulling from everywhere. So sprinkled throughout all of the books, actually, I have family and friends that kind of supported me and who have stood by me as I've written these books, and I kind of change up their names and use them for some of the alien or some of the human characters.
That's really fun. I love that.
Yes, it's kind of like a scavenger hunt for them also.
I write an urban fantasy serial, and I asked my friends if they wanted their names to be used, and they all chose villains.
Oh, wow. That's interesting. I think I might do that next time around. Is like, ask them if they want to be a good guy or a bad guy. So
yeah, a surprising number will choose to be the bad guy.
I know.
So can you tell us about, so Heaviness of Knowing is your first novel. Can you tell us about your publishing journey?
Wow, that has been a huge learning experience. So, when I first decided that I wanted to write what now is The Heaviness of Knowing, I initially just assumed that I was going to follow the traditional route of write the book and find an agent and try to get a contract with a traditional publishing house or something along those lines. And right before I got to maybe like the halfway mark, I ended up reading this story by a woman who was also self-published. And I didn't know it at the time, and I really enjoyed it. So I went online researching information about her. And when I got to her website, there was this whole section called For Writers. And so not only did she have information on her website, but she had also written a book called, I think it was called at the time, The Survival Guide for Indie Publishers. And so I purchased that book, and that was really how I started the journey initially of finding an editor and trying to find someone to create a cover and finding someone to help me format the books. And am I going to do an ebook and a print copy and all of those things? And it's a lot of information. It's very overwhelming. And one of the things that I've come to realize is that as you do this, and the more time that goes on, and especially because of my personality being what it is, I started to learn how to do little bits and pieces myself. So for me, pretty much the only thing I did for that first book, for The Heaviness of Knowing, was I just wrote the story, and then I paid someone to do every other part. So I had an editor, I had someone that actually paid someone to format both the physical copy and the ebook copy, and I paid the designer and, paid people for graphics for different things. And after that first book was published, then I started interacting with more writers on Facebook in various groups. And there you just get so much information. And the good thing about it was people freely sharing tips on if you want to format, you can use this software, or if you want to create these graphics, you can go to this location and stuff. And so where I was the first book to where I am now, completely night and day. So I purchased the software that would allow me to like create the ebook and the physical book copies of everything that I do. So when I want to change something up, like if I find a small typo in the book, I don't have to go and pay someone or get on someone's schedule. I can just make the change myself. Or if I need to create graphics because I want to do some type of promotion or just put something on the website, I know the tools that are available to do that for myself. So it's really been a learning experience and actually a lot of fun for me.
Yeah, I think a lot of people underestimate, and clearly you don't at this point, how entrepreneurial you become after a while.
Yeah, and that was one of the things that I think that she made, that the lady who wrote the book, her name is Susan Quinn, by the way. I don't think she has those published anymore, but it was one of the things that she made sure to stress in her book was that if you're deciding to self-publish, that sometimes people have this false notion that self-publishing is the easy way out. And it's so is not the easy way out, because now you're the writer and you're the publisher and you're the marketer and you're the one that makes the business decision. So you have to wear all of these hats. Whereas if you kind of go down the traditional path, generally speaking, once you write the book, you're done and you can move on to writing the next one. So.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's pretty empowering to have control over all of those aspects. And I think that it's definitely a challenge, but it's nice that you can just go onto your own website, or if you don't like your cover, you can choose something else. I know that our cover of the Heaviness of Knowing is, what version of cover is this? Is this a second version? I know it's different from the one on Amazon, but
Yeah. Yes, it's actually the third version. And so that was the other learning experience as well. So, the first cover that I had, it was gorgeous. I loved it, but it was I was making kind of the rookie author mistake, was I was creating a cover that I thought looked really nice and not one that was fully communicating my actual genre. And that I didn't even realize it until there was someone in a forum and we were discussing, like, why people were kind of overlooking the book. And so this lady gave me feedback and she was like, I don't want to hurt your feelings, but I never would have thought that this was a book about adults. She was like, the cover looks kind of juvenile, it skews a little young. And so that was when I was like, oh, okay, I need to do this. And so I changed the cover to the print version that's available on Amazon now. And what made me change from that version to the version that you have in your hands is the designer that created that first cover wasn't available to create the second cover. And so I found a new designer, and when he created the cover for The Peril of Knowing, I absolutely fell in love with that cover and was like, I need to make the first cover look more like that one. And so I had that designer go back and do the new covers, and he's pretty much my go-to designer now. So.
Well, that makes sense.
And it's a really beautiful cover.
Mm-hmm.
And I felt so privileged that we got to be some of the first people to see it and provide it to all the F-BOM members who are going to be watching this.
So you talked a little bit about Facebook as your writing community. I'm wondering about all of your reading habits. So let's start with, what are you reading right now?
Right now, I am reading a sci-fi novel. Actually, I'm reading LJ's book.
Oh,
so,
great. Oh,
yes. Yes, when you guys reached out to me, I reached out to her to kind of, talk about the process and her experience. And so we were discussing it. And so she was like, hey, if you get a chance, pick up a copy of my book and take a look. And I think she might have actually sent me a copy of it. And so I have been reading her book now. In addition to her book, I'm actually reading another dystopian sci-fi novel called Feed One. And it's written by an author, and I can't think of her name, but I just did a swap where she told her readers about my book and I told my readers about hers. And it's this really interesting concept of social media, well, not necessarily social media, just being in front of the camera where everyone is watched at all times. And, so it's this dystopian society kind of set up similar to a 1984, but I think it's a little more modernized than a 1984. So.
Circling back to the Facebook question, what other reading or writing communities are you a part of? Is Facebook kind of your go-to? How did you connect with this author that sent you feed one? Do you have any secrets, I guess, for the rest of us?
Well, yeah, so I primarily am communicating with other writers on Facebook. So when I first got started, and anyone that reads the acknowledgments in this book will see that there was a local writers group here in Houston, well, in the Houston area, and that's where I started writing. And I ended up having to move to North Dakota for work, and I lost touch with them. And so when I came back, it was pretty much just myself. And as far as the communities that I'm in, there's a woman by the name of Patty Jensen. And if you write science fiction and fantasy, she has a pretty good group that's specifically for authors. And there's one that's for swaps. And so if you want to, hey, if someone would be willing to share my book, it's going to be on sale, or I have a new release coming out, if you wouldn't mind sharing information, this is my newsletter size, and taking offers and things like that. So those have been probably the two biggest, I guess, learning experiences for me. One of the others that I was in, again, this is no longer a group anymore. It was Susan's group. The lady whose book I first read, she had a group called For Love or Money. And that was based on her kind of approach to writing. And so there are the people who we call them the ninjas, and they're in it to make money. And so they chase the hot genres. They write really, really fast, and they publish like on a monthly schedule. And then you have the people that do the writing for love, and you write whatever you want to write. And it doesn't matter if it's a hot genre or not, it's the story that you want to tell. And so she was saying that you generally are going to choose one or the other when you start your career. And so that's what that group was about. It was basically people who were writing for love and people who were writing for money, and you just get in there and kind of share all of these tips. So
that's so true. And I think we both can tell too when we're looking for new authors for F-BOM which ones are in which category. To be honest, you sort of tell if you're looking, especially on the Amazon author page. Once you see the scroll bar going across of the
30 books that they've written in one series or one
in 2 years, yes.
Yeah, I'm on the Write for Love side.
Yeah, it's a harder path.
It's a much harder path. That's why we made F-BOM.
Well, yeah, and and one of the things is because I squarely fall in the for love side as well, and part of that is because for me, I have this career, and my career is satisfying. I'm happy with it, but these are the stories that I'm writing now are the stories that are just like I had to get them out. Like for me, the writing process itself is like I have all these people in my head. And so they keep coming to me and telling me their stories, or I keep seeing these scenes with them in them. And when I see these scenes, it's like either they're going to disappear or I have to write them down. So it's like that's how it is for me. So generally speaking, I'm probably not going to be the person that chases the trends that are hot at that moment, because it may not be something that I'm interested in writing. And I think that would make it drudgery.
No werewolves, no vampires.
Well, yeah, and
be out now.
They're, aren't they?
All right, one final question for you, and that's about your F-BOM experience. What does being an F-BOM author mean to you?
I guess one of the things is this is probably the first kind of external recognition I received for my book. So when I received the first communications from you guys, I really was just completely shocked and surprised. And I was like, I think this is legitimate. I don't know. It seems
I don't know still.
Yeah, so, but once I realized, like, okay, yeah, this is a real thing, it was exciting to me, especially because I think one of the questions in the forum where someone asked, when I started writing this book, did I have feminist ideas in mind? And my answer, to the question and still now is like, I didn't necessarily think I'm going to write this book that espouses this particular viewpoint. It was really more so I know the type of person I am and I know the type of women that are in my life. And so, you have me where I'm an engineer and that's a mechanical engineer at that. So that's a pretty male dominated industry. And I have another friend who is an industrial engineer and she works in a lot of factories installing equipment and machinery. And I have a cousin that's very close to me who went to the Marine Corps and retired, so she did 20 plus years in the Marine Corps. But then I also have my sister who is a stay-at-home mom and who runs her household like a tight ship. And so, there's my mom who worked a full job, but she was still that person who was in charge while my father was working, away from home and doing the things that he was doing. So to me, it's just all of these women are in my brain, and we have never been the type that are just the, oh, woe is me. It's like you get knocked down, you get sad, you get angry, and then you come up with a plan and you go blow up the world. And so that's how it works.
Can you make that our tagline?
Yes. Yes, you can have it for free.
Oh, that's great. I love it. Mm-hmm.
All right. That's the end of our questions. So I'm going to tell everybody our flash fiction topic and the deadline. The deadline is March 12th. March 12th is when we're going to send your 100-word flash fiction stories over to Sharolyn to be judged. And the results will come out a week after that. And our topic is in dreams. Okay.
I have a question.
Yeah.
Did Sharolyn choose the topic?
Sharolyn approved the topic.
Awesome. We had, how many submissions did we have last time?
So many. I'm trying to think. I can't remember the exact number, but
Yeah.
we had a lot of people submit last time. It was so fun. Way more.
600% more than we'd had our first round. So I anticipate a lot of competition on this, our third flash fiction contest.
Yeah.
So I'm really excited to see what people write.
Yeah.
Yes, and I look forward to reading stories about dreams. And, for me, I just want to see the creativity. It's, it could be good dreams, it could be bad dreams, whatever. So no dreams, whatever.
Awesome. And just a reminder, if some of you are sad that Sharolyn didn't answer a question that you had or thought she might talk about, you can always log on to fbombforum.com and ask online. If you're not a member yet, you can become a member anytime. We won't stop you.
Yeah, you can still get Sharolyn's book now, even though the F-BOM period has already started.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. So thank you so much, everyone.
Thank you, Sharolyn.
And have a great rest of your day.
Bye.